The massive space station called Harmonious Unity floated in the dark void between stars. Its gleaming metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside, thousands of different alien beings moved through corridors that glowed with soft, blue light. Today was special. Today, the most powerful races in the galaxy had come together to talk about a problem. The problem had a name. Humans. Ambassador Zethka walked into the great meeting hall on his 6 thin legs. His purple skin shimmered under the bright lights. Behind him came other aliens. Some floated in bubbles of water. Others moved on wheels instead of legs. A few looked like living crystals that sang when they talked. All of them were angry about the same thing. In the center of the huge room sat a single chair. In that chair sat Captain Jake Morrison. He was a human male about 40 years old with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His dark uniform bore the patch of Earth's space fleet. He did not look worried, even though hundreds of alien eyes stared at him with hate. "We are here today," Zethka began, his voice echoing through the hall, "to discuss what must be done about the human problem." The word problem came out like he was spitting something bad from his mouth. Jake sat quietly and listened. He had been through worse things than angry aliens, much worse. A tall, thin creature made of what looked like living glass stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "The crystalline hegemony has ruled the Vega sector for 10,000 years. Our worlds are perfect. Our cities are beautiful. Then these humans came, the glass being pointed one sharp finger at Jake. They land on worlds we marked as death traps, planets with deadly storms, worlds where the ground shakes every day, places where the sun's fire would kill any thinking being. But not humans. They build cities there. They raise families there. They act like it's normal." Another alien stood up. This one looked like a large blue squid floating in a tank of water. "The Aquatic Federation agrees. These humans ignore our borders. They fly their ships through nebulas that would destroy our vessels. They mine asteroids and radiation fields that would cook our people alive. When we tell them to stop, they just smile and wave." More aliens spoke up. Each one had a story about humans doing impossible things, building homes on planets with poisonous air, swimming in oceans of liquid methane, walking around on worlds where the gravity would crush normal beings into paste. "They are not like us," said a robot with glowing red eyes. "The mechanical synthesis has studied their behavior. They do not fear death. They seek out danger. This is not normal thinking." Jake almost smiled at that one. If only they knew the truth. An alien that looked like a walking tree spoke next. Its voice was deep and slow. "The Grove Collective has watched humans for 50 years. They cut down our sacred forests to build their towns. When we explained that the trees were alive and thinking, they said sorry and planted new ones. But they still stayed. They said the radiation from our holy groves felt refreshing to them. The tree beings' leaves rustled with anger. Nothing finds our radiation refreshing, it kills everything. Except humans." Admiral Susan Clark stood up from her seat near the back of the room. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and the kind of steady eyes that came from commanding starships for 20 years. "If I may speak," she said in a clear, strong voice. Zethka's purple skin turned darker. "The human military leader may say her words, but they will not change what must be done." Susan walked to the center of the room, her boots clicking on the metal floor. "You're all missing something important here. Humans aren't trying to cause trouble. We're just living our lives. If our world seemed dangerous to you, that's because you come from safer places than we do." A creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. "Safer places? Every world in the galaxy is safer than the places humans choose to live. That's the point," Susan said. "Our homeworld, Earth, tried to kill us for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, deadly animals, diseases, meteor strikes. Things that would wipe out most races just made us stronger." She gestured toward Jake. "Captain Morrison here grew up in a place called Colorado. The air is so thin that most of you couldn't breathe there. He went to school during blizzards that would freeze your blood solid. For fun, he used to climb mountains that would kill you just from the cold. Jake nodded. My hometown sits on top of an old supervolcano. Every few years, the ground shakes hard enough to knock down buildings. We just build them stronger and keep going. The aliens looked at each other with confusion and fear in their eyes. This was not what they expected to hear. The problem, Susan continued, is that you think we're aggressive. You think we want to fight and conquer, but that's not what's happening. We're just looking for places to live and grow. If those places seem impossible to you, well, impossible is what we do best. Zethka slammed his fist on his speaking platform. Enough. We did not come here to listen to excuses. The human expansion must stop. You will return to your home system and accept our protection. You will not leave without our permission. You will follow our rules. The room fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes watched Jake Morrison. He had sat quietly through the whole meeting, listening to species after species complain about his people. Now he stood up slowly. Jake was not a big man by human standards. He was average height, maybe a little thin. But something about the way he moved made the nearest aliens step back. There was a stillness about him, like a calm ocean before a storm. You want us to go back to our home system and stay there, Jake said. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the huge room. You want us to accept your protection and follow your rules. That is correct, Zethka said. If you refuse, we will use force to make you comply. Jake looked around the room, at all the different alien faces. Some showed anger, some showed fear. All of them showed the same thing underneath. They had never really been afraid before. Not the way humans had learned to be afraid. And because they had never been truly afraid, they had never learned to be truly dangerous. You might want to think about that threat, Jake said, still in that same quiet voice. Back on Earth, we have a saying. It goes like this: don't start a fight you can't finish. A small alien that looked like a furry ball with eyes rolled forward on tiny wheels. Are you threatening us, human? No, Jake said, and for the first time he smiled. It was not a nice smile. I'm trying to give you some free advice. On Earth, when something threatened our families, our homes, our way of life, we didn't hide behind councils and rules and committees. We fought back, and we usually won. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the space station's engines. 300 years ago, Jake continued, my ancestors fought a war against the most powerful military in their world. Everyone said they would lose. The enemy had better weapons, more soldiers, bigger ships. But my ancestors had something else. They had no choice but to win. So they did. He looked directly at Zethka. You're making the same mistake that enemy made. You think numbers and technology are what matter in a fight, but the most important thing in any fight is how much you're willing to lose to win it. Jake sat back down in his chair. We've already lost our homeworld once when we left it to explore the stars. We've built new homes on worlds that tried to kill us every day. Do you really think we're going to give up those homes just because you tell us to? The voting began an hour later. One by one, each alien race cast their vote. The humans must be stopped. The humans must be controlled. Force would be used if necessary. The final vote was 47 races for military action, 1 race against. As the meeting ended and aliens began to file out, Admiral Susan Clark walked over to Ambassador Zethka. The purple alien was talking to his assistants about fleet movements and battle plans. Ambassador, Susan said quietly. Zethka turned to look at her. His dark eyes showed no doubt, no fear, only cold determination. You should know, Susan said, that humans have another saying. It's about what happens when you make assumptions about people you don't really understand. And what does this saying tell us? Zethka asked. Susan's smile was sad, like she was watching someone walk toward a cliff in the dark. It usually ends with someone looking very, very foolish. She turned and walked away, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Behind her, Captain Jake Morrison stood up from his chair and followed. Neither human looked back at the hundreds of aliens who were already planning their war. In 3 weeks, the Veltharian Fourth Fleet would learn what those old Earth sayings really meant. 3 weeks after the vote at Harmonious Unity, the Veltharian Fourth Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Vostal stood on the bridge of his flagship Divine Retribution and smiled with satisfaction. 200 of the galaxy's finest warships spread out behind him in perfect formation. "Scan the system," he ordered his tactical officer. "Show me what these humans think they can defend with." The purple-skinned Veltharian at the sensor station worked quickly. "Sir, I detect one human colony on the third planet. Population approximately 50,000. I also show 5 human vessels in the system. 3 appear to be cargo ships. 2 are listed as defensive craft." Vostal's smile grew wider. 5 ships against 200. The humans had not even tried to run. Either they were very brave or very stupid. In his experience, there was little difference between the two. "Open a channel to the colony," he commanded. On the planet below, Colony Administrator Lisa Grant was sitting in her office reviewing the monthly harvest reports when her communication system chimed. She looked up from her desk, which was built into the side of a mountain that shook at least twice a day from seismic activity. Outside her window, she could see the aurora caused by the radiation storm that had been going on for the past week. "Administrator Grant here," she said, pressing the accept button. The face of Admiral Vostal appeared on her screen. His purple skin was darker than most Veltharians, and his black eyes held no warmth. "I am Admiral Vostal of the Veltharian, Fourth Fleet. By order of the Galactic Council, this system is now under military occupation. You will surrender immediately and prepare for evacuation." Lisa leaned back in her chair. She was 45 years old and had been running colonies on difficult worlds for the past 20 years. This was not her first time dealing with threats. "Admiral, with respect, we're not going anywhere. This is our home." "Your home?" Vostal looked confused. "Our surveys show this world is barely habitable. The seismic activity alone should make permanent settlement impossible. The radiation from your star during solar storms would kill most organic life." "Most organic life, yes," Lisa agreed. "But we're not most organic life. We're humans." The Admiral's confusion turned to anger. "You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures. If you refuse, we will use force." Lisa looked out her window again. In the distance, she could see the settlement's children playing in the courtyard of their school. The building was designed to withstand earthquakes and had shields to protect against radiation, but the kids barely noticed when either happened anymore. They were second-generation colonists born on New Terra. This world with its shaking ground and deadly storms was the only home they had ever known. "Admiral," she said, turning back to the screen, "you're making a mistake. But I don't think you'll listen to me explain it. So I'll let Captain Cooper handle this conversation from here on out." She cut the connection and immediately opened another channel. "Danny, you're up." Captain Danny Cooper was on the bridge of the colonial defense ship Defiant when Lisa's message came through. He was a thin man with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He had served in Earth's merchant marine for 15 years before coming to New Terra to help protect the colony. "I see them, Lisa," he said, looking at his tactical display. 200 ships. They brought friends." "Can you handle it?" Lisa asked. Danny looked around his bridge. His crew was small, only 12 people. But they were all volunteers who had chosen to stay on New Terra despite the dangers. They knew this world. They understood how to use its peculiarities to their advantage. "We'll manage," Danny said. "Jake, what do you have on sensors?" Lieutenant Jake Phillips, the ship's sensor officer, was a young man who had grown up on New Terra. To him, radiation storms and earthquakes were just normal weather. "Sir, the lead ship is trying to contact us." "Put him through." Admiral Vostal's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Danny could see the busy bridge of a massive warship. "Human vessel, you will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded." Danny scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well now, Admiral, that's not going to happen. See, this is our home, and we don't take kindly to folks who come here uninvited and start making demands. You have 5 small ships against 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships," Vostal said. "Surrender now, and your people will not be harmed. 5 ships, huh? Danny looked at his tactical officer. Sarah, how many ships do we actually have? Lieutenant Sarah Martinez checked her screen. Well, sir, there's us and the Courage. The cargo haulers don't really count as warships. So 2 ships against 200, Danny mused. I've seen worse odds. Vostal's patience was running out. This is your final warning. Surrender or face the consequences. Danny Cooper had been born in Texas back on Earth, in a place where people had been fighting against impossible odds for centuries. His great-great-grandfather had been at a place called the Alamo, where a few hundred men held off an army of thousands. They had lost that battle, but they had made it cost so much that they won the war. Admiral, Danny said, his voice calm and steady. Let me tell you something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't back down. And we sure as hell don't run away from a fight when our families are behind us. He paused and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Come and take it. The first shots were fired 10 minutes later. Admiral Vostal had expected a quick, clean victory. Instead, he got his first lesson in what happened when you fought humans on their home ground. The Defiant and her sister, ship Courage, did not fight like any enemy the Veltharians had ever faced. Instead of meeting the fleet head-on, they disappeared into the asteroid belt that ringed the system. Most races avoided the belt because of the radiation and unstable rocks. Humans had been mining it for 15 years. Where did they go? Vostal demanded. Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied. The radiation is interfering with our sensors. Then follow them in. 2 ships cannot hide from 200. But they could. The human ships moved through the asteroid field like they were swimming in familiar water. They knew every rock, every radiation pocket, every gravitational anomaly. The Veltharian ships, designed for open space combat, struggled to maneuver between the floating mountains of metal and stone. The first Veltharian ship to die was the cruiser Endless Glory. It followed the human ships too deep into the belt and got caught in a gravitational eddy that pulled it into a spinning asteroid the size of a small moon. The ship was crushed like an egg. Pull back, Vostal ordered. Reform outside the belt and wait for them to come out. But the humans did not come out. Instead, they attacked from within the belt itself. Using the radiation as cover, they fired missiles that the Veltharian sensors could not track until it was too late. The weapons came out of the storm of energy, like ghosts, striking ships that thought they were safe. The second part of the battle was even worse for the Veltharians. A massive solar storm struck the system, the kind that happened every few months on New Terra. The colonists were used to it. They had built their ships and homes to handle the deadly radiation. The Veltharian fleet had not. Shields at 60% and falling, reported the tactical officer on Divine Retribution. The radiation is overloading our systems. How are the human ships still functioning? Vostal asked. Unknown, sir. It should be impossible. But it was not impossible for humans. They had learned to live with radiation on Earth, where the magnetic field sometimes failed and cosmic rays poured down from space. They had improved that technology on New Terra, where radiation storms were a fact of daily life. While the Veltharian ships struggled to keep their shields up, the human defenders struck again and again. They used the storm as a weapon, leading enemy ships into the worst parts of the radiation field where electronics failed and crew members fell sick. The boarding actions were the final insult. When Veltharian Marines finally managed to get aboard the human ships, they found that humans were stronger, faster, and far more aggressive than their intelligence had suggested. A human soldier could function in gravity that would crush a Veltharian. They could breathe air that was too thin for most aliens. They could fight in conditions that would kill other species. Worse, they seemed to enjoy it. Fall back, Admiral Vostal finally ordered as his fleet count dropped below 100 ships. All vessels, fall back to the jump point. But the retreat was as bloody as the battle. The human ships followed them out of the asteroid belt, striking at damaged vessels and rescue craft. They showed no mercy to an enemy that had come to destroy their home. When the Veltharian Fourth Fleet finally jumped to hyperspace, they left behind 73 ships and nearly 10,000 dead. The human losses were 12 people killed, and both defense ships damaged but still fighting. Admiral Vostal sat in his command chair as his broken fleet limped toward Veltharian space. His communications officer looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting a full report on the operation." Vostal stared at the tactical display showing the empty space where his ships used to be. "Tell them," he started, then stopped. How could he explain what had happened? How could he make them understand? "Sir," the communications officer prompted. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 3 days. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the great chamber of harmonious unity, their voices rising in anger and fear. The defeat of the Veltharian Fourth Fleet had shocked everyone. No one had expected the humans to fight so well or so ruthlessly. Ambassador Zeth-Ka stood at the center podium, his purple skin darker than usual with rage. Around him, other alien leaders demanded answers. How had 200 advanced warships lost to 5 human vessels? How had the mighty Fourth Fleet been destroyed by colonists living on a world that barely supported life? "The answer is simple," declared General Crix Na of the Hive Mind Collective. His insect-like body clicked as he moved, and his 1,000 eyes glowed with cold intelligence. "We underestimated them. We sent 1 fleet when we should have sent 10. We will not make that mistake again." The Ethereal Collective's representative floated in a sphere of glowing energy. When it spoke, its voice was like music, but the words were harsh. "Our psychic warriors can break the minds of any enemy. The humans will surrender when they face true power." A mechanical being rolled forward on metal wheels. The Synthesis Collective had sent one of their greatest war minds. "Our drone swarms number in the millions. Individual skill means nothing against overwhelming numbers. The humans will be buried under our attacks." One by one, the species that ruled the galaxy promised their ships and soldiers. The Aquatic Federation would send their deep space fleets. The Crystal Hegemony would provide their energy weapons. The Grove Collective would contribute their living warships that could repair themselves in battle. When the final count was done, the combined pacification force numbered 50,000 ships. It was the largest military force in the history of the galaxy. Nothing could stand against it. Nothing had ever tried. Far from the council chamber, in a space station orbiting AI, Dead Star, Fleet Admiral Beth Richardson reviewed the intelligence reports with her senior staff. The humans had been busy since the attack on New Terra. New ships were being built. New weapons were being tested. New tactics were being developed. 50,000 ships, said Commander Rick Hayes, her intelligence officer. He was a young man, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. "Every major species in the galaxy except us." "Not every species," Beth corrected. "The peaceful ones refused to join. So did the neutral traders and a few others. But yes, it's most of them." She looked out the window of her command center at the human battle fleet assembled in the shadow of the neutron star. 100 ships, built in conditions that would kill most aliens just from the radiation. Each ship was a work of human engineering, designed to survive in the most hostile environments in the universe. Her flagship, the Indomitable, hung in the center of the formation. It had been built in the corona of a star, using materials that could only be forged in temperatures that would vaporize normal matter. Its armor was made from neutron star metal. Its reactors used controlled black holes for power. Most aliens would consider it a barely contained disaster waiting to happen. To humans, it was just another Tuesday. "What do we know about their battle plan?" Beth asked. Commander Hayes pulled up a holographic display. "They're assembling at Rally Point, Sigma, about 50 light-years from here. From there, they plan to move on our major colonies one by one. They think if they hit us hard enough and fast enough, we'll surrender." "Will we?" asked Captain Amy Foster, commander of the fast attack ship Relentless. She was a small woman with fierce eyes and scars on her hands from working in zero gravity construction. Beth smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "What do you think, Amy?" "I think they're about to learn why you don't threaten a human's family," Amy replied. The meeting was interrupted by an alert from the communications station. Lieutenant Tony Garcia looked up from his console with excitement in his eyes. "Admiral, we're getting a transmission from the pacification force. They're demanding we surrender. Put it through, Beth ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a massive alien warship. General Krixna stood in the center, surrounded by representatives from a dozen different species. Behind them, Beth could see the command centers of other ships, all connected by quantum communication. "Human Fleet Commander," Krixna said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "I am General Krixna, Supreme Commander of the Combined Pacification Force. You will surrender immediately and order all human colonies to prepare for occupation." "I'm Admiral Beth Richardson," she replied calmly. "And no, we won't." The alien general's 1,000 eyes flashed with anger. "You face 50,000 ships with barely 100. Your colonies are defenseless. Your people will die if you resist." "Our people will die if we surrender too," Beth said. "The difference is if we fight, some of your people will die with us. If we surrender, only we die. It's not a hard choice." A floating crystal being moved forward on the alien command bridge. "We offer you one final chance. Surrender now and your species will be relocated to safer worlds under our protection. Refuse, and we will show no mercy." Beth looked around her own bridge. Her crew was small compared to the alien ships, but every one of them was a volunteer. They had all grown up on worlds that tried to kill them every day. They had all chosen to serve in space where one mistake meant death in the cold vacuum. They were not afraid of impossible odds. "Let me ask you something," Beth said to the alien commanders. "Do you know what the most dangerous animal on Earth was?" The aliens looked confused by the question. General Krixna's eyes narrowed. "What does this have to do with anything?" "It wasn't the biggest predator," Beth continued. "It wasn't the strongest or the fastest. It was a small, weak creature that lived in groups. It had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. But it had something else. It had the ability to work together when threatened, and it never, ever gave up." She stood up from her command chair. "That creature was the ancestor of every human in this fleet. For 3 million years, everything on our world tried to kill us. We survived by being smarter, tougher, and more stubborn than anything else. We turned every threat into a tool, every enemy into a teacher." The alien commanders watched her with growing unease. Something in her voice was making them nervous. "You want to know what you're really facing?" Beth asked. "You're not fighting a military. You're fighting a species that spent its entire evolution learning how to turn the impossible into the inevitable. You're fighting creatures that look at a problem and ask not, 'Can we survive this?' but, 'How do we use this to make ourselves stronger?'" She gestured toward the neutron star outside the window. "We built this fleet in the heart of a stellar graveyard, using the corpses of dead suns as raw materials. We power our ships with forces that would tear apart your atoms. We live in places you mark on your maps as certain death, and call them home." The transmission was getting interference now, static lines running across the alien faces. "Commander," Hayes reported quietly. "Admiral, we're moving into the radiation field. Their equipment won't be able to maintain contact much longer. You have 1 hour to reconsider," General Krixna said, his voice distorted by the interference. "After that, we will show you what happens when primitives challenge the galaxy's greatest powers." "General," Beth said, just before the transmission, "cut out. You're about to learn why picking a fight with Deathworlders always ends badly." The screen went dark. The human fleet hung in the shadow of the neutron star, tiny specks of metal and ceramic against the cosmic fire. 100 ships against 50,000. In any reasonable universe, it would be a massacre. But humans had never lived in a reasonable universe. "All ships," Beth announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Admiral Richardson. The enemy has 50,000 ships. They have superior numbers, superior technology, and the backing of the entire galactic civilization. They think this makes them powerful." She paused, looking out at the twisted space around the neutron star where gravity was so strong it bent light into impossible shapes. "They're wrong. They've never faced anything like us because there has never been anything like us. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We are the descendants of creatures that turned ice ages into opportunities and asteroid strikes into evolution. We are humans, and we do not surrender. The response from the fleet was immediate and unanimous. 100 captains, speaking as one. Understood, Admiral. We are ready. In the depths of space, instruments designed to detect impossible things registered the impossible. The human fleet was moving, not away from the coming battle but toward it. They were using the neutron star's gravity to accelerate to speeds that should have torn their ships apart. Captain Amy Foster, commanding the Relentless, reported to the Admiral with excitement in her voice. "Beth, you're not going to believe what our engineers just figured out. If we time this right, we can use the star's magnetic field to accelerate our weapons to near light speed." "Will it work?" Beth asked. Amy's laugh was full of dangerous joy. "Only one way to find out, but if it does, those 50,000 ships are going to have a very bad day." Behind them, the neutron star pulsed with deadly radiation. Ahead of them, the largest invasion force in galactic history waited in perfect formation. The Battle of Proxima Nexus began at 800 hours Galactic Standard Time. The combined pacification force emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 50,000 ships spread across three-dimensional space like a metal cloud. General Krixna stood on the bridge of his flagship Galactic Supremacy and felt confident for the first time since this war began. "All ships report ready," announced his tactical officer. "Enemy contacts detected. 100 human vessels holding position near the neutron star." 100, Krixna repeated with satisfaction. "They did not even try to run. Their arrogance will be their destruction." The alien fleet was magnificent to behold. Ships from a dozen different species, each design perfected over thousands of years of warfare. The crystalline hegemony's energy, vessels sparkled like living diamonds. The Aquatic Federation's bioships moved like giant space whales. The mechanical synthesis sent clouds of drone fighters that darkened the stars. But the humans were nowhere to be seen. "Sir," the tactical officer said, confusion in his voice, "the human ships have disappeared from our sensors." "Impossible," Krixna snapped. 100 ships cannot simply vanish. "They appear to have moved behind the neutron star," came the reply. "The radiation is blocking our scans." Krixna felt the first cold touch of worry. "Send the first wave to investigate. Keep the main fleet in formation." 2,000 ships broke away from the massive formation and moved toward the neutron star. They were the fastest vessels in the pacification force, designed to scout and engage enemy fleets. As they approached the twisted space around the dead star, their sensors began to fail. "This is Squadron Leader Vextan," came a transmission from the lead ship. "Radiation levels are extreme. We are losing contact with—" The transmission ended in static. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Beth Richardson watched the alien scouts enter the neutron star's magnetic field. She was standing in the center of a command room that most species would find impossible to survive in. The radiation here would kill an unprotected alien in seconds. To humans, it was just another workplace. "Captain Foster, you are clear to engage," Beth said into her communicator. "Understood, Admiral," came Amy Foster's voice from the Relentless. "Beginning attack run now." The human attack began in a way that no alien strategist had ever imagined. Captain Amy Foster's ship Relentless came screaming out of the neutron, star's gravity well at a significant fraction of light speed. The ship was using the star's incredible gravitational field like a slingshot, building up velocity that should have been impossible for any vessel to achieve. But the Relentless was not just any vessel. It had been built to survive in the hearts of stars. Its hull was made from materials that could only exist under the pressure found in neutron star cores. As it flew through space that would crush normal matter into exotic particles, it began to fire. The weapons that emerged from the Relentless were not normal missiles or energy beams. They were chunks of neutron star matter, accelerated to near light speed by the star's own magnetic field. When they hit the first alien scout ship, the results were catastrophic. The crystalline vessel Harmony's voice simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, The next, it was a cloud of superheated plasma expanding in all directions. The scouts around it tried to scatter, but they were already trapped in the neutron star's gravity well. "This is impossible," General Krixna shouted as he watched his scouts die one by one. "No ship can survive in that radiation field." "Human ships can," his science officer replied with growing fear. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the neutron star system. They're not hiding from us. They're using the star as a weapon." The second phase of the human attack began when engineer Tony Garcia and his team activated the weapons they had spent months building inside the neutron star's magnetosphere. Tony was not a soldier by training. He was an engineer who specialized in working with impossible materials under deadly conditions. He had volunteered for this mission because someone had threatened his home. "Magnetic field generators online," Tony reported from his position deep within the star's radiation field. "Particle accelerators at full power. We're ready to light this candle." What Tony and his team had built was not a weapon in any traditional sense. They had turned the neutron star itself into a massive particle cannon. Using the star's own magnetic field, they could accelerate matter to speeds that approached the fundamental limits of physics. When that matter hit something, it released energy equivalent to small nuclear explosions. The alien scout force was annihilated in less than 10 minutes. 2,000 ships reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and debris. General Krixna stared at his tactical display in horror as the friendly contacts disappeared one by one. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "The humans cannot repeat that attack against our main force." He was wrong. The third phase began when the rest of the human fleet revealed their positions. They were not hiding behind the neutron star as the aliens had thought. They were using it as a base of operations, flying through its corona and radiation fields like they were swimming in comfortable water. Captain Danny Cooper, now commanding the new battleship Defiance Revenge, led a strike force directly through the neutron star's polar jets. These were streams of charged particles moving at near light speed, deadly radiation that would sterilize entire worlds. The human ships rode these jets like surfers riding waves, using them for both propulsion and protection. "This is Defiance Revenge to all human vessels," Danny announced over the communication network. "We are beginning our attack run. Remember, we're not trying to fight fair. We're trying to win." The human ships that emerged from the neutron star's radiation field were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved through space that would destroy normal vessels, fired weapons that violated several laws of physics, and seemed to thrive in conditions that should have been instantly fatal. The battle that followed was not a fight between equals. It was a demonstration of what happened when a species that had evolved to survive anything met species that had evolved to survive in safety. The Aquatic Federation's bioships, magnificent creatures that had ruled the oceans of 1,000 worlds, found their organic hulls dissolving when exposed to the exotic radiation that human weapons carried. The mechanical synthesis's drone swarms, programmed with the tactics of 10,000 battles, could not adapt to an enemy that ignored all known rules of warfare. The ethereal collective's psychic warriors tried to break human minds with their mental attacks, only to discover that human consciousness was unlike anything they had encountered. Minds that had been shaped by millions of years of constant threat could not be easily broken. The psychic feedback actually damaged several ethereal ships. "Fall back," General Krixna finally ordered, as his fleet count dropped below 30,000 ships. "All vessels, emergency hyperspace jump." But the retreat was worse than the battle. The human ships pursued the fleeing aliens with ruthless efficiency, striking at damaged vessels and rescue craft. They showed the same mercy that a hurricane shows to houses in its path. Admiral Beth Richardson watched the alien fleet break apart from the bridge of the Indomitable. Around her, the neutron star continued its ancient dance, pulsing with radiation that would have killed her ancestors. But humans were no longer the weak creatures that had first looked up at the stars. They had become something new, something that could take the most hostile environment in the universe and call it home. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from over 5,000 alien vessels." "Accept all surrenders," Beth replied. "Provide Aid to damaged ships. We're not monsters, we're just very good at surviving. The final phase of the battle was not violence, but revelation. As the surviving alien commanders were brought aboard human ships for processing, they saw something that changed their understanding of the universe forever. They saw humans living and working in environments that should have been instant death. They saw children playing in radiation fields. They saw families having dinner while their ship flew through the corona of a neutron star. They saw a species that had turned the universe's deadliest phenomena into the foundations of their civilization. Captain Amy Foster's report to Admiral Richardson summed up the battle in terms that would become famous throughout human space. Enemy force of 50,000 ships engaged and defeated. Human casualties: 47 killed, 212 wounded. Enemy casualties: approximately 35,000 ships destroyed or disabled. Recommend we send their survivors home with a message about the dangers of threatening a human's family. When the last alien ship jumped to hyperspace carrying news of their defeat back to the Galactic Council, the neutron star continued its eternal rotation. Around it, human ships began the work of rescue and repair. They had won the greatest military victory in the history of their species. But for them, it was just another day of doing what humans had always done. They had taken something that tried to kill them and made it into a tool for protecting their families. The universe was still dangerous. It was still trying to kill them every moment of every day. The difference was that now, 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Nexus, the Great Chamber of Harmonious Unity was a very different place. Where once 47 species had gathered to vote for war against humanity, now only 12 governments remained stable enough to send representatives. The others had fallen to civil wars, economic collapse, or simply the shock of losing most of their military forces to a species they had dismissed as primitive. Ambassador Zethka walked slowly into the chamber on legs that seemed older than they had been a year ago. His purple skin was pale, and his once proud bearing was broken. Behind him came the other survivors of what historians were already calling the Coalition War. They moved like beings who had seen something that changed their understanding of the universe forever. The human representative sat in the same chair that Captain Jake Morrison had occupied during the first meeting. But this time, it was Colonel Steve Martinez who faced the assembly. He was a veteran of the neutron star battle, a man whose uniform bore scars from fighting in the atmosphere of a gas giant. His calm brown eyes showed no anger, no triumph, only the steady patience of someone who had survived impossible things. "We are here today," Zethka began, his voice barely above a whisper, "to discuss the new reality of our galaxy." The words hung in the air like a confession of defeat. Around the chamber, the few remaining alien delegates sat in stunned silence. The crystalline hegemony's representative was a fragment of his former self. Literally, the entity had lost most of its mass during the battle and now stood barely 3 feet tall. The Aquatic Federation had sent a junior diplomat because their senior staff had all been aboard ships that no longer existed. "We attacked them because we thought they were aggressive," Zethka continued. "We were wrong. We thought they were dangerous because they settled on worlds we considered uninhabitable. We were wrong about that too." He gestured toward Colonel Martinez with one shaking hand. "They are not aggressive. They are defensive. Everything they do, everything they are, is about one simple thing: survival. And after 3 billion years of evolution on a world that tried to kill them every day, they have become very, very good at it." The mechanical representative of the Synthesis Collective rolled forward on damaged wheels. Half of its lights were dark, and sparks occasionally flew from its damaged circuits. "The humans did not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not see obstacles. They see opportunities. They do not see deadly environments. They see homes." An alien that looked like a walking tree spoke next. The Grove Collective had lost most of their sacred worlds during the war. They're living. Ships burned by human weapons that turned stellar radiation into focused death. We studied their behavior during the conflict. When we attacked their colonies, they did not retreat to safer worlds. They moved deeper into regions we had marked as uninhabitable. They built new homes in the hearts of stellar storms, and the gravity wells of black holes. Colonel Martinez listened to the aliens speak about his people with the same calm attention he had once given to enemy positions during battle. When the chamber fell silent, he stood slowly and walked to the center of the room. "You're starting to understand," he said simply. "But you're still missing the most important part." He looked around at the broken representatives of species that had once ruled the galaxy. "You think we're different because we're stronger or faster or more aggressive than you. But that's not it. The real difference is that we never learned to stop being afraid." The aliens stared at him in confusion. Fear was something they had largely evolved past. Their civilizations were built on safety, stability, predictability. They had tamed their homeworlds and eliminated most sources of danger from their lives. "Fear is what kept our ancestors alive when everything else died," Martinez continued. "Fear of the dark made us build fires. Fear of predators made us build weapons. Fear of hunger made us plant crops. Fear of the cold made us build shelters. Every advancement our species ever made started with being afraid of something." He gestured toward the great window that showed the stars beyond. "When we finally reached space, we brought that fear with us. We looked at radiation fields and asked, how do we survive in that? We looked at gravitational anomalies and asked, how do we use that? We looked at stellar phenomena that would kill other species and asked, how do we make that our home?" Dr. Helen Parker, the fleet's xenobiologist, had been studying the differences between humans and other species since the war began. Her research reports, now circulating throughout what remained of galactic civilization, provided the scientific explanation for what everyone had witnessed. The fundamental difference, she had written, is not physical or technological. It is psychological. Most species evolved in environments stable enough to allow the luxury of safety. Humans evolved in constant crisis and never learned to stop adapting. Her reports detailed how human physiology was designed for survival in hostile environments. How human psychology was built around the assumption that the universe was actively trying to kill them. How human culture was organized around the principle that the only safety came from being prepared for anything. The aliens had read these reports with growing horror and understanding. They finally comprehended what they had tried to fight. "We offer terms," announced the representative of the ethereal collective, its voice hollow with defeat. "What do you want from us? Territory, resources, tribute?" Martinez shook his head. "We want the same thing we've always wanted. Room to live, challenges to overcome, and to be left alone to do what we do best." "Which is?" asked Zethka. "Survive," Martinez replied. "The universe is still trying to kill us, just like it always has. The difference is that now you understand what that means." Over the following months, the galaxy slowly began to adapt to its new reality. Trade agreements were negotiated not between equals, but between survivors and those who had learned to live with survivors. Humans became the galaxy's emergency response force, the species others called when something impossible needed to be done. When a plague spread through the outer rim that killed every known form of life, human medical teams found a cure by working directly with the pathogen in conditions that would have been instantly fatal to other species. When a black hole began consuming a populated system, human engineers built evacuation equipment that operated inside the event horizon itself. The galaxy learned to value what humans offered, and humans learned to work with species that had different ideas about what constituted safety. It was not always easy. Human children still played in radiation fields that would sterilize other worlds. Human families still built homes in the corona of unstable stars. Human explorers still pushed into regions of space that other species marked as certain death on their charts. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral and serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, concluded the formal peace treaty negotiations with a simple statement that would become the foundation of galactic law. "The universe is big enough for all of us. Dangerous enough too. Instead of fighting each other, maybe we should work together to survive what's really trying to kill us." The treaty was signed aboard a human space station built inside the magnetosphere of a pulsar. The alien delegates required special shielding just to survive the journey. The human crew went about their daily routines without any protection beyond their regular uniforms. Professor Nancy Thompson's final report on the Coalition War became required reading in what remained of galactic civilization. Her conclusion was simple. Humans are not conquerors. They are not destroyers. They are adapters. Given enough time and pressure, they will turn any threat into a tool, any enemy into a teacher, any impossible situation into just another Tuesday. Years later, when new species made contact with galactic civilization, they were always given the same warning. The galaxy was home to many strange and wonderful beings, but there was one species that was different from all the others. These beings called themselves humans, and they had one unique characteristic that set them apart from every other form of life ever discovered. They were not afraid of the dark between the stars. They had made the darkness their home, and in the depths of space, human ships continued their expansion into regions that other species had marked on their maps as unsurvivable. Their crews hummed old Earth songs and drank coffee while they turned the impossible into the inevitable, just as their ancestors had done for millions of years. The universe was still trying to kill them. It always would. But humans had learned long ago that the best response to a universe trying to kill you was to make friends with it and invite it home for dinner. After all, they had been doing exactly that for their entire existence as a species. And they were very, very good at it.